For years, Tom Oar represented something many people believed had disappeared from modern life. While most of the world rushed toward technology, convenience, and constant connection, Tom stood as a living reminder of a simpler and tougher way of living. Audiences were fascinated by his ability to survive in harsh wilderness conditions using skills passed down through generations. With his weathered face, calm voice, and quiet confidence, he became one of the most unforgettable figures on television. Viewers admired the way he approached life without complaint, embracing brutal winters, dangerous terrain, and endless physical labor as if they were simply part of the natural order. His lifestyle seemed almost impossible to modern audiences accustomed to comfort and convenience. Yet that authenticity was exactly what made him so compelling. He was not pretending to survive for entertainment. He had built his entire life around self-reliance and respect for nature. Over time, fans became emotionally attached to Tom and his journey. They saw him not just as a television personality, but as a symbol of resilience, independence, and enduring strength. So when he suddenly began appearing less frequently and eventually stepped away from the spotlight, audiences were left shocked and deeply curious. Rumors spread quickly online as fans searched for answers. Some feared health issues had forced him into retirement. Others wondered if fame itself had disrupted the peaceful life he spent decades building in the Montana wilderness. The mystery surrounding his absence only intensified public fascination, and people everywhere began asking the same question: what really happened to Tom Oar? The appeal of a life far removed from modern society. What made Tom's story resonate so deeply with viewers was not just his survival skills, but the philosophy behind the life he chose to live. In a world dominated by noise, stress, and endless distractions, his existence in the remote Montana wilderness felt almost mythical. He and his wife Nancy built a life based on simplicity, hard work, and direct connection to the natural world. Every day revolved around practical necessities rather than digital obligations. Firewood needed chopping, food needed preserving, traps needed checking before winter storms rolled through the valley. Their lives were shaped by seasons, weather, and preparation, rather than schedules and deadlines. For many viewers, this lifestyle represented freedom in its purest form. Tom did not appear interested in fame, luxury, or modern comforts. Instead, he seemed completely content with a quiet cabin, handmade tools, and the rhythm of life in the mountains. That contrast made him stand out dramatically from other television personalities. Audiences felt they were witnessing someone truly authentic, a man who had chosen purpose over convenience. His calm demeanor and steady work ethic created a sense of peace rarely seen on television. Watching him work with leather, prepare for winter, or quietly travel through snowy forests became strangely comforting for millions of viewers. The appeal was not rooted in action or drama alone. It came from the deeper feeling that Tom represented values people feared society was losing. Self-reliance, patience, craftsmanship, and connection to nature all became central themes in his story, making his eventual absence feel far more emotional than audiences expected. The rugged journey that shaped Tom Oar's character. Long before Tom became known for wilderness survival, his life was already defined by toughness and adventure. Growing up in Illinois, he was introduced to horses and rodeo culture at an early age. Those early experiences shaped his personality and taught him lessons about resilience, pain, and determination that would later become essential in the wilderness. As a young man, Tom entered the dangerous world of professional rodeo, where success depended on courage and physical endurance. Bull riding was not simply a sport, it was a brutal test of fearlessness where injuries were common and every ride carried serious risk. Tom embraced that challenge completely. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, he earned respect within the rodeo community for his skill and relentless drive. Audiences admired competitors willing to risk everything for a few intense seconds inside the arena, and Tom quickly built a reputation as someone who refused to back down from danger. However, rodeo life also came with consequences. Years of violent falls, trampling injuries, and physical punishment slowly took their toll on his body. One especially severe accident involving a bull named Woolly Bugger became a turning point. The injuries forced Tom to confront his own mortality and reconsider the future he wanted for himself. Over time, the excitement of the arena no longer outweighed the physical damage and emotional exhaustion. Rather than continue chasing danger beneath stadium lights, Tom began seeking something quieter and more meaningful. That search eventually led him toward the Montana wilderness, where a completely different chapter of his life would begin. The love story that changed everything forever. Tom's move into the wilderness was not a journey he made alone. At the center of his life stood Nancy, the woman who would become both his partner and his greatest source of strength. Together, they made a decision that most people would consider impossible. They left behind the comforts and security of ordinary society to create a life deep in the Montana wilderness. Their journey was not motivated by fame or adventure alone. It came from a shared belief that life could be more meaningful when lived simply and honestly. The couple packed their belongings into an aging truck purchased with money earned from muskrat pelts and headed toward the Yak River Valley, with little certainty about what the future would hold. The challenges they faced were immediate and relentless. Winters brought dangerous cold, heavy snow, and long periods of isolation. Supplies were limited, and survival required constant effort. Yet those hardships only strengthened their bond. Nancy adapted to wilderness life with remarkable determination, learning to trap, hunt, and survive alongside Tom, rather than merely supporting him from the sidelines. Their relationship became one of the most admired aspects of their story, because audiences could see the genuine trust and teamwork between them. They relied on each other completely, in an environment where mistakes could carry serious consequences. Together, they transformed a remote and unforgiving landscape into a home built on resilience, respect for nature, and unwavering commitment to one another. Their partnership became a powerful example of enduring love, shaped by hardship rather than comfort, discovering a skill that became a lifelong legacy. One of the defining moments in Tom's life came unexpectedly during a visit to a small shop where he first encountered the art of brain tanning. This ancient method of preserving animal hides fascinated him immediately because it connected craftsmanship directly to survival and tradition. Unlike factory-made goods, brain tanning required patience, precision, and deep understanding of natural materials. Tom immersed himself in learning the craft, practicing tirelessly until he mastered techniques that few people still understood. Over time, his handmade leather clothing, moccasins, and traditional gear gained widespread admiration among wilderness enthusiasts and historical reenactors. What began as practical knowledge soon evolved into a respected art form that became central to his identity. Audiences watching his work could sense the pride and care he placed into every handmade item. He was not simply producing merchandise. He was preserving traditions connected to America's frontier history. Through his craftsmanship, Tom became more than just a survivalist living in the mountains. He became a teacher and symbol of disappearing skills many feared would vanish entirely in the modern world. Fans admired the patience required to create clothing and tools entirely by hand using methods passed down through generations. His work carried authenticity because it reflected the same values guiding his lifestyle. Nothing was rushed, wasted, or artificial. Every piece represented hours of labor and respect for the natural world. This dedication to preserving traditional craftsmanship helped transform Tom into one of the most beloved and respected figures audiences had ever encountered on television. The wilderness that tested every part of their strength. Life in the Yak River Valley was never easy, no matter how peaceful it sometimes appeared on television. Behind the breathtaking mountain views and quiet forests existed a harsh reality that demanded constant effort just to survive. Winters in Montana were not simply uncomfortable. They were dangerous. Temperatures dropped far below freezing, snow-buried roads and trails, and isolation became complete for long stretches of time. Tom and Nancy had to prepare months in advance for every winter season because failure to do so could have life-threatening consequences. Firewood needed stacking, food had to be preserved, and traps had to remain active despite brutal weather conditions. Every task carried physical demands that became harder with age, yet the couple continued pushing forward year after year. What impressed audiences most was the calm determination they brought to those struggles. They never complained dramatically or sought sympathy. Survival was simply part of the life they had chosen together. Their resilience became deeply inspiring because viewers understood that these challenges were real. Unlike scripted television drama, the dangers surrounding them could not be controlled or edited away. Storms, wildlife, and isolation created constant uncertainty. Yet through every hardship, Tom and Nancy faced the wilderness side by side, relying on experience, preparation, and trust in one another. Their ability to endure difficult conditions for decades transformed them into symbols of perseverance and commitment that audiences admired far beyond the world of survival television. becoming the heart and soul of the series. As the television series gained popularity, Tom gradually became its emotional center. While many survival personalities focused on intensity or danger, Tom stood out because of his quiet wisdom and authenticity. He never seemed interested in creating drama for the cameras. Instead, viewers connected with the calm rhythm of his daily life and the genuine humility he carried into every situation. Audiences appreciated that he approached survival not as entertainment, but as a lifelong responsibility shaped by experience and respect for nature. His scenes often became some of the most memorable moments in the series because they felt grounded and sincere. Whether he was preparing hides, checking traps, or discussing life lessons beside a fire, people felt they were learning from someone who truly understood hardship and simplicity. His presence brought emotional depth to the show that extended beyond wilderness survival itself. Viewers saw in Tom qualities they admired deeply, including patience, honesty, self-reliance, and gratitude for simple things. Over time, he evolved from a cast member into a symbol of a fading American frontier spirit. Fans admired not only his skills but the values he represented. He reminded people that fulfillment did not require luxury or fame. A meaningful life could still be built through hard work, craftsmanship, and connection to the land. That emotional connection explains why his reduced appearances later caused such concern among audiences who had grown deeply attached to his story over the years, the health crisis that changed everything. For decades, Tom appeared almost indestructible despite the physically punishing life he lived. Years of rodeo injuries, harsh winters, and relentless outdoor labor seemed unable to slow him down. However, age eventually began catching up with him in ways that could no longer be ignored. One of the most frightening moments came when Tom suddenly experienced severe breathing problems during the night. Deep in the remote Montana wilderness, far from immediate medical care, the situation quickly became alarming. Tom and Nancy were forced to travel nearly 80 miles through rugged terrain to reach the nearest hospital in Libby, Montana. For viewers, the incident revealed a side of wilderness living rarely discussed openly. Independence and isolation come with serious risks, especially as people grow older. Doctors later diagnosed Tom with heart failure, explaining that fluid had built up in his lungs because his heart was no longer functioning properly. The diagnosis marked a painful turning point. Suddenly, the man audiences viewed as endlessly resilient faced a battle that survival skills alone could not solve. Tom began wearing medical monitoring equipment and taking medication while trying to adjust to a new reality where physical limitations became unavoidable. Fans were deeply emotional, watching someone they admired confront vulnerability so openly. Yet even during this difficult period, Tom maintained the same calm dignity that defined him throughout the series. Rather than surrendering to fear, he approached his health struggles with quiet acceptance and determination, inspiring viewers once again through resilience instead of physical strength alone. Nancy's strength during their hardest chapter. While Tom's health crisis became a major concern for viewers, many people also gained a deeper appreciation for Nancy's incredible strength during this difficult chapter of their lives. Throughout their years together in the wilderness, she had always been more than simply a supportive spouse. Nancy was an equal partner who helped build and maintain their rugged lifestyle from the ground up. However, Tom's declining health placed new responsibilities upon her shoulders. She took on additional physical tasks around their property, while also helping monitor his condition and ensuring he received proper care. Audiences watching this period of their lives saw a relationship built not merely on romance, but on profound trust and loyalty, forged through decades of shared hardship. Nancy remained steady and composed, even as uncertainty about Tom's future increased. Her devotion became one of the most emotionally powerful aspects of their story, because viewers understood the sacrifices involved in caring for someone while living so far from modern conveniences and medical facilities. Together, Tom and Nancy demonstrated what true partnership looks like during adversity. They did not abandon the life they loved, but they adapted to changing circumstances with grace and realism. Fans admired the quiet tenderness between them, especially during moments where Nancy's support became essential to Tom's well-being. Their relationship reminded audiences that survival is not only about physical endurance. Emotional strength, trust, and commitment can matter just as much when facing life's most difficult challenges together. When fame began invading their private sanctuary. One of the greatest ironies of Tom's television success was that the fame eventually threatened the peaceful solitude he had spent decades creating. Before appearing on television, the Yak River Valley offered exactly what Tom and Nancy desired most: privacy, quiet, and separation from the pressures of modern society. However, as the series became more popular, curious fans began traveling long distances hoping to meet the legendary mountain man in person. What started as occasional visitors gradually became an overwhelming stream of tourists arriving near their property. Some visitors respected boundaries, but others treated the area like a public attraction rather than someone's home. For a couple who intentionally chose isolation and simplicity, this sudden attention became emotionally exhausting. Tom openly admitted that while he appreciated the kindness and admiration from supporters, the constant interruptions affected the peaceful rhythm of life they valued so deeply. The wilderness sanctuary they spent decades building no longer felt completely hidden from the outside world. Fame had followed them into the mountains. This situation created difficult emotional tension because Tom genuinely cared about the people who supported him. Yet he also longed to protect the privacy and freedom that originally drew him to Montana. Audiences watching from home rarely considered the personal cost of public attention on individuals who never actively sought celebrity status. For Tom and Nancy, television exposure brought opportunities and financial stability, but it also disrupted the very lifestyle viewers admired them for living in the first place. Rumors, false reports, and internet confusion. As Tom appeared less frequently on television and discussions about his health became more public, internet rumors began spreading rapidly. Because he lived so remotely and rarely addressed speculation directly, misinformation quickly filled the silence. One of the most damaging moments came when false online reports claimed that Tom had passed away. These fake obituaries spread across social media platforms and websites with alarming speed. Many fans believed the reports immediately because of his age, his previous health scare, and his reduced screen time. Emotional tributes and condolences flooded the internet before reliable sources could clarify the truth. The situation highlighted how quickly misinformation can spread online, especially when audiences feel emotionally attached to public figures. For many fans, the rumor felt devastating because Tom had become more than a television personality. He represented values and traditions people deeply admired. The false reports also revealed how disconnected modern internet culture can become from reality. Stories were repeated and shared widely without verification, simply because they seemed believable. Eventually, more trustworthy sources confirmed that Tom was still alive and continuing to live quietly with Nancy, although he was understandably slowing down with age. Even after the rumors were disproven, confusion persisted online because people continued speculating about retirement, health issues, and whether he would ever return fully to television. Through it all, Tom remained largely silent, continuing to value privacy over public explanation, despite the growing curiosity surrounding his life. The difficult reality of growing older in the wilderness aging presents challenges for everyone, but growing older in a remote wilderness environment creates difficulties few people truly understand. For decades, Tom relied on physical strength, endurance, and experience to survive harsh Montana winters and maintain his off-grid lifestyle. However, time eventually changes even the toughest individuals. Simple tasks that once felt routine gradually become more demanding. Chopping firewood, carrying supplies, traveling through deep snow, and checking trap lines require tremendous energy and stamina, especially for someone in their 80s. Tom himself began openly acknowledging these realities in later interviews and appearances. He spoke honestly about the physical toll years of wilderness living had placed on his body, while also reflecting on what retirement might actually mean for someone like him. The idea of slowing down felt emotionally complicated because survival work was not merely a job, it was his identity and way of life. Fans admired his realism and humor while discussing aging because he never pretended to be invincible. Instead, he approached the subject with humility and acceptance. Audiences also understood that wilderness life grows increasingly dangerous as medical emergencies become more likely with age. Access to hospitals, emergency services, and assistance remains extremely limited in remote regions. These realities forced Tom and Nancy to consider difficult questions about their future. Could they continue living exactly as they always had, or would adaptation become necessary to protect their health and safety during later stages of life? Florida, retirement, and the search for balance. As concerns about health and aging increased, discussions about spending more time in Florida began drawing attention from fans. To some viewers, the idea of Tom leaving Montana seemed almost impossible, because the wilderness had become so deeply connected to his identity. Yet the possibility of relocating part-time to a warmer climate made practical sense. Harsh Montana winters place enormous physical strain on aging bodies, especially for people already dealing with heart conditions and declining endurance. Florida offered milder weather, easier access to healthcare, and an opportunity for Tom and Nancy to slow down without completely abandoning the lifestyle they loved. However, retirement itself remained a strange concept for Tom. He often joked about not understanding what retirement was supposed to look like for someone who spent his entire life working with his hands and living independently. Sitting still did not come naturally to him. Audiences found those reflections deeply relatable because they revealed the emotional difficulty many hard-working individuals experience when considering major life changes. Retirement was not simply about stopping work. For Tom, it meant potentially stepping away from a way of life that defined him for decades. Fans respected that internal struggle because it felt honest and deeply human. While rumors about permanent relocation continued circulating online, Tom and Nancy seemed focused primarily on finding balance between maintaining their independence and adapting realistically to the challenges of aging. That balance became one of the most important themes during the later years of their public journey, the family loss that brought quiet heartbreak. Behind Tom's rugged public image existed personal pain that many viewers knew little about. One of the most heartbreaking chapters in his life involved the loss of his daughter, Keely, who passed away in 2015. While Tom rarely discussed grief publicly, the tragedy deeply affected the entire family. Losing a child is an unimaginable emotional burden for any parent, and experiencing such pain while also living in the public eye made the situation even more difficult. Fans who later learned about the loss gained a deeper understanding of the quiet sadness, sometimes visible beneath Tom's calm exterior. Despite the heartbreak, the family continued moving forward with resilience and strength. Tom's son Chad built a successful life in Florida with his wife Kim, operating a respected horse training center in Ocala. Their path reflected a different version of the values Tom spent his life teaching. Hard work, dedication, and connection to animals remained central themes even outside the Montana wilderness. Audiences appreciated learning more about Tom's family because it revealed another side of him beyond survival television. He was not simply a wilderness icon. He was also a father, husband, and family man, navigating both joy and loss like everyone else. These personal details added emotional depth to his story and reminded viewers that even people who appear extraordinarily tough still carry private grief and emotional struggles hidden beneath the surface of public admiration and rugged independence, a lasting legacy built on simplicity and strength. Regardless of whether Tom ever fully returns to television, his impact on audiences has already become permanent. Through years of living openly and honestly in the wilderness, he introduced millions of people to values rarely celebrated in modern culture. Simplicity, self-reliance, patience, and respect for nature all became central parts of his legacy. Viewers admired not only the practical survival skills he demonstrated, but also the quiet dignity with which he approached life itself. He never appeared motivated by fame, wealth, or recognition. Instead, he focused on craftsmanship, family, and living according to principles that felt increasingly rare in a fast-moving world. That authenticity is why so many people remain emotionally connected to his story today. Tom represented the idea that a meaningful life does not require luxury or constant attention. Purpose could still be found through hard work, connection to nature, and commitment to loved ones. Even as age and health challenges forced changes in his lifestyle, audiences continued respecting the grace and honesty with which he handled those transitions. His story became larger than survival television alone. It evolved into a reflection on aging, resilience, and the importance of staying true to oneself despite changing circumstances. Whether crafting leather goods, enduring Montana winters, or quietly reflecting on retirement, Tom Oar inspired viewers because he lived authentically. In a world often dominated by performance and distraction, that authenticity became his greatest and most enduring legacy.